actually the Smithsonian, that's really hard to say, has over 300,000 bones and body parts that they're actually looking through that they can tell arthritis by lesions in the bones. Different diseases leave different marks on the bones, so they can tell that. So you don't necessarily need a fully body to see that. But yeah, they get it from that. The mummies, and mummies all over the world. There's just more than mummies in Egypt, guys. There's some in China. There's some all over the world. There's bog mummies, which are really cool. They're found in swamp areas, and they look like have leather skin. It's the coolest thing. But yeah, so it's really neat where they can get it from.
Are there risks and precautions you have to take when studying these diseases?
Good question. Actually, yeah, you have to be careful. For example, everybody knows about King Tut and the mummy curse, correct? Well, what happened was when Carter and his team went into King Tut's tomb to look at his body and everything, every single one of them that went in that tomb died. So they thought, oh no, King Tut, just plagued us and we died. And what happened was there were so many microorganisms that were trapped in that tomb for so long. When they opened the doorway to get in there, and the air went in, and more nutrients kind of went in, it woke up those microorganisms, and they breathed it in, and that's why they all passed away. They should have had protective gear covering their face, been more, protective. Unfortunately, in the 1930s, they didn't realize that. Unfortunately, Carter, for example, took King Tut's body, and he removed his head from the body and x-rayed it, which was not a good thing to do, so I can see why they thought he might be mad, because I'd be mad if somebody took my head off. But yeah, so you have to be careful. You have to protect yourself. Most of them are, mummified, like the one I showed you, so they're pretty much dead. It's just their shell still in there. But you should always be precautioned because of breathing in, especially mainly the ones that are going into the tombs.
Are there any cultures today that practice mummification?
There's some in Egypt that do. If you have a lot of money, you can get mummified today if you want. I'm kind of thinking about it myself, maybe. It'd be kind of cool. But some cultures do. It's not as popular nowadays as it was in ancient times. But for being over maybe like 30,000 years ago, those are very smart people. Also, fun fact: if they find the tomb of Imhotep, which no, it's not from the movie The Mummy, guys, but he was a priest that was highly respected from a pharaoh who was just a normal Joe Schmo. The pharaoh thought highly, made him a priest. And if they find his tomb, he's actually the father of medicine. They have evidence from him that he drilled holes in skulls to relieve pressure of the brain. He mended wounds, did treating. So if they find his tomb and evidence, he will replace Hippocrates. So we won't be doing the Hippocratic oath, we'll be doing the Imhotep oath. Any other questions?
Are there any leading professors or scientists in this field today that you know of?
Yes, there's actually three. There's one at ASU who will hopefully be my next, my professor when I transfer to ASU. She's a paleopathologist. There's a paleopathologist in Cairo, Egypt, who does both people, but mostly specializes in animal pathology and kind of like how diseases have changed from them when ancient times to now. And then the one gal in Manchester, England, who I really like to pick her brain, she's also an Egyptologist on top of paleopathologist, and she works at the same museum that the gal who wrote this book works at. So I'd like to pick her brain and maybe work with them, because the whole west wing of the Manchester Museum is full of mummies. And also another fun thing too, a lot of mummies actually don't smell bad because everyone has their own particular scent that they put on the body. They put herbs and spices on them once they were fully dried, and so they had their own. They had their own scent. So they actually smell decent, so they don't kind of get these things.
Do you prefer like human pathology over animal pathology?
I do. And animals interesting, but the human aspect, I like to see how the microorganisms have changed, because I think it's important for us to get on top of the ones that are becoming resistant, because they're definitely changing from time to now, and don't want them to take over us. And so I'm just kind of curious on that, and to study more about heart disease, because back then they had a more better diet than we do. We have so many processed foods and we're getting heart disease, but they had heart disease. So what was the connecting factor of that, and what can we do to change that?
also connecting with Rhea's presentation, the dental disease. I know when we were talking about your project, you mentioned that these pharaohs had dental disease.
Yes.
What were they eating back then that did that for them?
Yeah, it was mostly the bread. They did have some kind of, I believe, sugarcane that they grew in crops and everything that would, rot their teeth and everything. Mostly that, but yeah, it mostly was the cause of death. I believe that was what killed Ramses the Great finally at the end of his time. After 92 years of living back then, I think he had a bad tooth that ended up giving him an infection and had him pass away. But
All right.